discussed an ultra-long-acting basal insulin, which has completely changed the scene for basal insulins. And now I'm going to take you to another insulin, which is again a game changer, the faster and flexible mealtime revolution. My financial disclosures, of course, this is a Novo-sponsored talk, but we're going to talk only about science here. So what I'll do is in the next few minutes, I'll take you through the importance of early postprandial glucose control. We'll discuss the evolving role of bolus insulins in diabetes management, and then we'll see how these newer insulins have expanded the horizon in terms of a faster, flexible, and a safer insulin that's available to us. So if you go back into history, postprandial hyperglycemia has started emerging as a new problem with changing landscape. And when we talk of the changing landscape, way back, I think the ancient Indian diets were very different. Essentially, it was small amounts of digestible carbohydrates, large quantities of fiber, indigestible carbohydrates, moderate fat, moderate protein, extremely low sodium, interspersed with variable periods of starvation because food availability was not ensured all the time, and there were periods of famine, starvation, and poverty. Moving on, when we talk of urbanization, industrialization, prosperity, affluenza is what we call this. Things have changed, and so have not only the genes, but the environment. Beyond that, the eating patterns have made a huge sea change, and now what we eat is dense carbohydrates, low fibers, refined carbs, increased food consumption because food is available in plenty to most of the people, and I'm not talking of the urban population, the rural as well. And of course, independence and the green revolution has absolutely changed the landscape. And what has happened is postprandial hyperglycemia. So if you are to, the starch study clearly showed that what all of us eat across India, different zones, north, south, east, west, is essentially more than 65% carbohydrates. And this is another endorsement of the fact. So irrespective of what meal combination we've all had, breakfast and lunch or whatever, chapati, dal, or if it is dosa chutney, idli chutney, pongal, puri sabzi, or even an upma, the scene of postprandial hyperglycemia is such that now it is not only the 2-hour surge that we need to talk about, but we need to look at the 30-minute and the 1 hour post this meal, the glucose surge, the excursion that happens. And as you can clearly see here, the Indian diet, the essential surge that crosses 200 and even touches 250 happens not only at the 2-hour, but at the 30 minutes or the 1 hour postprandial excursion. So it is important that we have some tools that match this immediate spike that comes when you are binging on any of these typical Indian diets to control this and match it to the pattern of glycemic surge that happens at the 1 hour postprandial value. So when we talk of the need for an early optimum postprandial control, clinical implications have already been endorsed by a number of studies, including the San Luigi Gonzaga diabetes study, which clearly showed that postprandial blood glucose is a stronger predictor of cardiovascular disease than the fasting blood glucose values in patients with type 2 diabetes, more so in women. And we've had an oration in the morning which actually showed how diabetes is different in women and how cardiovascular disease is also different. So here you have another assault, another culprit to add to. And the clinical implications of 1 hour post-meal surge that I just showed are more dangerous than the 2-hour surge because glycemia is much higher at 1 hour compared to the 2-hour value. Therefore, friends, the 1 hour postprandial glycemia is a stronger predictor of developing diabetes compared to the 2-hour value. And we know that endothelial dysfunction at the bottom line of all the diabetes complications is much more at the 1 hour value compared to the 2-hour post-glycemic surge. And therefore, I think it is time that we start talking and wondering whether it is important to target this 1 hour post-meal glucose. So is it time to actually make a paradigm switch in diabetes management? Because as science evolves, the management keeps changing. So here we have evidence which clearly tells us it's not only the 2-hour value, but the 1 hour surge that actually needs to be addressed. And the importance of this lies in the fact that we have data which clearly shows an increased arterial stiffness, increased LV mass, increased LV diastolic dysfunction, higher triglyceride levels, the ApoB levels, and a large amount of endothelial dysfunction secondary to the acute hyperglycemia induced oxidative stress, which forms the bottom line of all the hyperglycemic complications that we keep talking about all through. There are, of course, practical challenges to prandial insulin therapy, which are there both in an inpatient setting as well as in an OPD setting. If you talk of the OPD setting, of course, patients usually forget to take the bolus insulin. You ask them to take a lunch shot or probably a pre-dinner shot or a pre-breakfast shot, and they say they're too busy, they've missed a meal. Calculating the dose is again a big problem because SMBG is something which has to be endorsed when you are on an intensive insulin regime. Matching the amount of food to the amount of insulin is very, very important and remains a huge challenge all across when it comes to insulin therapy. Moving on, even in a hospitalized patient, the meal and the timing of insulin is a major concern. The timings usually are inappropriate. Either the meal has arrived, but the sister has not come to give you the bolus shot, or you've already had a meal and the bolus shot is taken later. Eventually, the NPO status, surgery getting postponed, reduction in appetite, caloric intake, all of these, including an acute illness, pose huge challenges. Of course, when it comes to the older insulin therapies, the PK/PD limitations are there for all of us to understand. And as people who've been using insulin for a long time, we're all well aware. If you look at the regular human insulin PK/PD, we all know has a slow absorption rate, slow onset of action. Ideally, it has to be given at least 30 to 45 minutes before a meal, which does pose logistic difficulties, infrastructural difficulties, and of course, an incorrect proportion, an incorrect dose, an incorrect imbalance between the dose and the meal can cause hypoglycemia or even a late postprandial hypoglycemia. So it is very, very important that an ideal postprandial glucose level can be achieved only by not only giving the right dose of insulin, but at the right time, so that it can actually match the glycemic surge that has to be targeted. So in this context, if you look at the different insulin innovations that have happened ever since insulin came in, and we're all into the centenary of insulin celebrations, way beyond when we started with insulin, 1920s, there was an evolution of human insulins, and then came the analogs and even in the inhaled insulin, and then there was a lull for about a decade or so, after which we've had this innovation in terms of making the fast insulins faster. And that is where we now have the fast-acting insulin aspart, which is again another game-changer molecule from this armamentarium. The quest for an ideal rapid-acting insulin analog has been on for a long time. Structural changes in the amino acids of the beta chain of insulin have been made to find the right insulin that actually matches the postprandial surge that is responsible for all the complications that we're talking of. Different administrations have been tried: sprinkler needle, pulmonary administration, formulation additives have been used, DDTA, citric acid, magnesium, biochaperone insulins, niacinamide additions, injection site modifications have been made, whether application of heat or hyaluronidase, etc., have been tried. So if you look at the profiles of prandial insulins that we have all been using all along, right from human insulins to the analog glulizine or Lispro or even the inhaled Afrezza, we are now moving on to much faster insulins. So the structural changes, if you look at the human insulin versus the human Lispro, this reduces the strength of interactions that hold the insulin dimers together. So the dissociation of hexamers is much faster compared to a regular insulin when you're looking at Lispro or aspart. So as a result, the absorption of monomers is much faster, and that is why we say these are faster insulins. Again, if you compare insulin glulizine to the regular human insulin, it provides a better physiological postprandial glucose control by disposing of glucose much more rapidly, and this is something that we all have learned from experience. Afrezza, the inhaled insulin, again has a much rapid onset of action and a quick time to peak action. But again, the duration is much shorter. So compared to the regular human insulin or the rapid acting insulins. So the benefits that are offered by insulin aspart, we all know the reduced monomer-monomer interaction in the dimer leads to a fast monomer formation after injection, and therefore the postprandial glucose was much more stable with insulin aspart, as you can see here, in comparison to Lispro, when given as a normal pre-meal bolus, leading to a smaller glucose excursion as compared to Lispro. So friends, building on a strong foundation of insulin aspart, we've seen the clinical benefits indicated all across the diabetes spectrum, all across different age groups, right from children more than 1 year of age to adolescents to adults and the elderly. Pregnancy and breastfeeding, the safety has been long established, can be used in a continuous infusion in the pump system as well as can be given intravenously, provides better glycemic control, lower hospital mortality, shorter length of stay, lower cost in admitted patients, and now we have an opportunity to improve postprandial glucose control, and the medical rationale for the ultra-fast insulin is very simple. This is how the regular human insulin works, and we all know comes on board, takes a longer time to come, stays for a longer time, but this is how the normal pancreas works. So this is what is tried to, ape when you use a rapid acting insulin, kind of trying to match what the normal pancreas does when it comes to insulin secretion. And now we have the ultra fast insulin, which is almost copying what your normal pancreas does. So an ultra fast insulin, an ideal one, better approaches the physiological insulin secretion, more so in a type 1 diabetic, as well as replaces the early insulin secretion in a type 2 diabetic, and has a better profile for the pump therapy patients also. So simply, what has been done is changing the formulation of an insulin aspart by small changes. A, addition of a niacinamide absorption modifier, as well as adding an L-arginine, which is added for stability, which is a naturally occurring amino acid. And what this results in is a faster insulin, which is faster than the aspart that we've all used. And this is documented by this cross-trial indirect comparison of showing an early glucose lowering effect. So if you compare insulin aspart that we have been using to a human insulin, you see the area under curve is 38% greater. But what happens is, if you compare aspart to the faster aspart, what you see is with the faster aspart, the area under curve increases much more, 74% greater, which clearly tells you that it works faster and much better. And this is the evidence behind it. Phase 3 trials, the onset 1 in patients with type 1 diabetes and onset 2 in patients with type 2 diabetes, clearly showing how the FIASP, the faster acting aspart compared to the routine aspart, provides a significantly better HbA1c reduction with mealtime faster aspart versus the conventional in type 1s, as well as in type 2s, a similar reduction in HbA1c between the two, which clearly tells you how this insulin provides you a better postprandial control compared to the aspart that we've all been using. So what this is another another data which clearly compares the aspart to the fast acting aspart, clearly showing you that the 1 hour control, which is very, very important as I showed you, is significantly better with the mealtime faster aspart compared to aspart as well. More so, hypoglycemia, which is always a concern when you have a patient on insulin, the onset 9 in patients with type 2 diabetes clearly shows a significantly lower risk of overall as well as nocturnal hypoglycemia with the FIASP. The meal-related hypoglycemia, again, the onset 9 clearly showed where you have a concern at the 2 to 4 hours after meal or even between 3 to 4 hours after meal is much less with the faster aspart compared to the insulin aspart. More so, when we talk of the faster insulin, flexibility is very, very important, and this is something that I said when you have the practical gaps in terms of giving the insulin dose along with the meal, because you need to match the bolus insulin to the meal. This is one insulin which gives you complete flexibility. So can be taken as early as just 2 minutes before the meal, and if the patient has already had a meal, can be given even 20 minutes following the meal and it works just fine. So faster aspart gives you the flexibility of dosing it anytime, just before to even 20 minutes after the meal. More so, the special situations, the PKPD, there again, exactly great. So safe for use when it comes to managing your patients with gestational diabetes, and we know hyperglycemia in pregnancy is one indication where we want to target the 1 hour postprandial surge, which is very, very important when it comes to all the complications associated with GDM or with hyperglycemia in pregnancy, and this is where it takes an edge over all the other analogs that we have, because we know that in GDM, essentially the problem in most of the ladies with true gestational diabetes is postprandial hyperglycemia and the 1 hour surge. So this is where it works just fine. Even in children with type 1 diabetes, faster aspart is associated with a significantly greater glucose lowering effect, and there were no significant age group differences in the elderly versus the younger patients when it comes to the PK/PD parameters between the faster aspart and the insulin aspart. So friends, to summarize, the benefits offered by faster aspart compared to the older generation insulins, we all know how it closely mimics the physiological mealtime insulin secretion, provides a better control of both 1 hour and the 2 hour postprandial glucose levels, improves the time in range, improves patient satisfaction because of the flexibility that it provides and much less hypoglycemias. The flexible dosing, which is just 2 minutes before the meal to even up to 20 minutes after the meal, and the shorter duration of action, which is as close to physiological insulin action that we want. No dose adjustments required in the elderly, less than 75 years, or even in renal and hepatic impairment, and significantly lower risk of overall as well as nocturnal hypoglycemia with the fast-acting insulin aspart, make it a favored mealtime insulin for all the categories of all our patients, be it type 1 or type 2 or even pregnancy. Thank you so much.